If you can imagine an Atlanta customer that is supported by a local Atlanta office that has, let's just say 50 people, there's only so much knowledge those 50 people have. But we have access to 600 people. And those customers in Atlanta should have access to all 600 employees to be able to bring, as I mentioned, the right skill to that problem.
Hey, Channel Insiders. Welcome back to Channel Insider Partner POV. I'm your host, Katie Bavoso, and today my guest is Glenn Mathis, President, COO, and board member of Integris, a national MSP platform serving 1,800 customers across more than a dozen states here in the U.S. We discuss how the managed service provider was able to scale to where it is today, what makes an MSP a true platform, and how Integris helps unlock better business outcomes for its customers in regulated industries like community banks. Glenn, welcome. It's great to see you.
Oh, it's great to see you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I know that you have offices all over the country, providers based all over the country. You yourself are in Minnesota today, where you were telling me it's been negative 12. So I'm really hoping that there's some sort of like heat pumping on you right now, and maybe a vitamin D lamp just to be giving you what you need, because that's an intense winter experience, my friend.
Yes, vitamin D lamp is a good idea. I'm going to put that on the Amazon list to get. But yeah, we're all warm here. But we're going through a little bit of a cold snap, but we'll come out. We'll be back in the 40s, I heard, over the weekend, which for us is a heat wave. So that'll be great.
Cold snap, more like a cold slap at that point, though. There's nothing about that. Not very snappy.
No, you hit it on the head.
So with Integris, you've got such an incredible M&A backstory. And I was reading about that this morning. And what I love is that you still refer to your offices where they're located as local providers, and that they're really a part of a network and not necessarily a part of, what some might call a major corporation. So why don't you tell me about the backstory of Integris and how you came to be, and what it is about the way that you run your company on such a wide scale? And I should, for our audience, point out, we're looking at more than 600 employees across the country and over 1,800 clients across a dozen states. So really impressive statistics.
Yeah, 1,800 managed services customers, in that we meet with them monthly, work with them on a monthly basis. We have probably a few more thousand that we work with in one-off basis, projects, professional services type engagements. But yeah, 1,800 customers that we see almost on a monthly basis. So yeah, pretty large. We are a national platform, premium IT managed service provider. I think the key word there is premium. We offer a full service experience to our customers, including managed IT services, cybersecurity services, consulting services, cloud services, and digital services, especially around data, which hopefully we'll talk a little bit more as we go through this conversation. We focus on the upper end of the SMB sector that really does appreciate the premium and professional services that a company like ours is built to provide. I think a key component for us is that we're vertically focused in mostly regulated or regulation adjacent industries. And we bring our scale and our skill and our value to all of those customers in a very standard Integris way. You asked about where we came from and how this all started. In some ways, it's an old company. 27 years ago, our founder started this business with his wife outright as he was exiting Rutgers University. And they focus on the legal industry, realizing there was an opportunity to sell IT services to legal customers that were really looking for a premium white glove sort of treatment. For many, many years, they built a lifestyle business. They weren't interested in growing it much larger than sort of where they were in the Northeast, New Jersey, and primarily in New York. And for many, many years, they did that. They joined a peer group in early 2008, 2009, 2010 area. And that's when things started to really explode and grow for them. They learned a lot in these peer groups, and these peer groups are really great. There's lots of MSPs that get together on a regular basis. We're a member of Evolve that's owned by ConnectWise. It started as HTG. And it's a collection of MSPs like size, like-minded, just working off benchmarks, sharing, ripping off and duplicating things each other in a very professional way, and ones that we're happy to share with people. And they learned a lot about sales. They learned a lot about other verticals. They learned about a whole bunch of things as being part of that peer group. And right around 2017 is when private equity found MSP, so to speak. And they were approached by a few private equity firms, and they had a decision to make. Do they want to continue to run a lifestyle business, which was doing very well? or did they want to build a platform? And by every measure that you want to look at, ESAT, CSAT, almost every measure that you could look at, the gross margins, revenue, growth, Integris, or at that point Domain, was far and above, stronger than most of the competition. And so Rashad, who is the founder and the current CEO of our business, decided that we were going to build a platform. And so he did that. And so around 2020, Integris got acquired by a private equity firm named Frontenac, and they started their acquisition spree from there. And so since then, Integris has done 9 acquisitions and grown, ideally identifying customers and or M&A opportunities in specific geographies, ones that we could target and get to grow the customer base and the vertical customers that we were looking for, and did some really great acquisitions. Through that, we also acquired our next really big vertical, which was our community banking vertical. We are, I would say, the largest community banking vertical support, MSP support organization in the country. We certainly are in many, many of the states where we are accredited by the local organization in those states. And we grew the business that way. And so it's been an exciting journey. Every day, most of the people from these organizations, it's the biggest business they ever run. And so the last year or two, we've been focused on building out our leadership team and identifying the right leaders that need to be brought in to help mature the business. People that have been from the outside and have been there, done that in the MSP space. I myself came from All Covered, where I helped build the All Covered organization for the last 25 years, running that business when I left. And we brought in new CTOs, new CPOs, new CFO, strong leaders from outside the business that have a lot of experience in this space. And so the collection of the influx of new talent and then the great talent that already existed in all of these 9 acquisitions, we've been able to build a platform supporting the SMB space, which again, doesn't really exist currently in the United States. There are very few platforms, ourselves and maybe 2 others, that are of size that can bring the depth and breadth of skill and scale to the SMB customer base, which is really underserved in many cases.
Absolutely. And I think when we talk about the IT channel, the SMB conversation has to go hand in hand with it, because that's what you're here to do. You're here to serve that space that is not able to build those teams themselves. So I do want to talk more along the lines of your customers. I also want to talk along the lines of what you provide in your portfolio. But something that you mentioned really struck me when you talked about private equity. And I have 2 questions based around that. One would be, knowing that at the scale that you're operating right now at Integris, how do you maintain that kind of personalized local touch in every state that you are serving customers? That's something where the bigger you get, that kind of can be the first thing that can fall off a bit, where it starts to feel a little too large for the SMB mom and pop stores that may be being served, or the community banks in this case that may be being served by Integris. So how do you maintain that personal local touch still?
It's a great question. And I would say that it's a question that's been asked for, I've been in this business 27 years, and it's been asked every year since I've been in this industry. I would say that things have changed, though. It's not as important in the way that you phrase the question as it used to be. And what I mean by that is that the small business customers today are much more sophisticated than they ever have been in the past.
Very true.
When I think about 15 years ago, moving into the cloud was a scary proposition, off-prem into the cloud. And what did that mean? The sons and daughters of those previous owners are now running these businesses. More and more companies that we bring on as customers are born in the cloud. They have no real concept of having a server on site or blinking lights in a server room. It's not something that they understand. They understand the cloud. They understand security. They understand the need for it. There's a fear of being attacked from a cybersecurity perspective. So they live in this ecosystem of technology already. They're already digital native. So the sophistication of the SMB users is much higher than it's ever been, which means that they understand that the efficiency, the quality of service that you can bring by bringing the right resource at the right time to the right problem or opportunity, whether it's a professional service project engagement or an issue in the environment, they're more interested in the quality and access to real skill that you can bring at the appropriate time to their environment. And that doesn't come from just being focused on geography, right? And so if you can imagine an Atlanta customer that is supported by a local Atlanta office that has, let's just say 50 people, there's only so much knowledge those 50 people have. But we have access to 600 people. And those customers in Atlanta should have access to all 600 employees to be able to bring, as I mentioned, the right skill to that problem. I think the other thing that is important, that's number one. Number two would be, I've always said good fences build good neighbors. So I'd say that if your expectations are that Johnny down the street is going to give you his cell number and you're going to have access to Johnny all day, all night, which I would argue Johnny doesn't want you to have his cell number calling him all day
Leave
and all
Johnny
night.
alone, everybody.
Yeah, leave Johnny alone. But if that's the expectation, then yeah, trying to do something on a more national basis, you do lose intimacy. But the vast majority of our customers and prospects that we talk to them about, yes, there's a local feel. We have employees in every place that our customers are. We're not hiring or signing up customers where we don't have employees. But the assignment of the work that those employees do, whether it's customer experience or whether it's service delivery or whether it's sales, may not be tied to that specific region only. And we want to tie them to the appropriate vertical, the appropriate technology stack, the appropriate shared service, and the appropriate customer at the right time. So the vast majority of our Atlanta employees, for example, support customers outside of Atlanta. But that doesn't mean that if our Atlanta customer has an issue that we can't send someone from Atlanta to them and work with them. Every customer gets a dedicated VCIO. Every customer gets access to a managed services concierge. Every customer has access to the appropriate technology support. We have our national help desk. We have a lot of our shared services. So we are able to support the customer in a way that I would argue is more intimate than just providing the geography focus.
You also talk about how a lot of those business owners, even the ones that are legacy family member business owners of these small to mid-sized businesses, are born in the cloud. They're very digitally savvy. I also would argue that in a post-COVID world, many people had to be. So as we're working more from home, as you have people who are operating more online, where maybe they had to pivot to e-commerce 5 years ago more than they had been doing before, you're operating in a world where you are much more spread out and much more focused online. We're much more focused on the screen in front of us. Look at what we're doing today. So it is important to consider of the environment in which they were raised, so to speak. So they are operating in a world where they're talking to many more people across different time zones and across the country.
Nimbleness is more, and the ability to get to the right solution. Listen, our customers want simple things, right? They want to be protected against all the new attacks that are out there. They want access to the skill to solve their problems as quickly as possible. And most importantly, maybe they want a real consultative experience, someone that can sit down with them and help build a roadmap and connect the dots on what their technology can do. You know, we did a great job as an industry engineering customers off-prem, on-prem, from off on-prem to into the cloud. But then once customers got into the cloud, it was kind of okay, now what?
Yeah.
And so the right MSPs are helping connect the dots from an ecosystem perspective and allowing and teaching and helping our customers understand how to navigate that new ecosystem that they're in and maximize the use of it. It's not just about, as I said, servers and blinking lights and devices and users. It's about data, access to data, where that data is stored. How do you present data? Do you have normalized data lakes that you can use to apply automation, machine learning, artificial intelligence, or some buzzword soup items that you hear a lot out there? People want to know how to access those, but they don't start at the place that is most important, which is you first have to have normalized data. You can apply any kind of AI to almost anything, but if it's not structured and it's not normalized, then AI is useless to you, as is automation, as is machine learning. And so the first part that we want to, we're helping our customers with, beyond just the infrastructure side of a traditional MSP, is helping them manage that data. And then how do they use that data to sell more of themselves, to provide better reporting to their own employees and customers, and to be able to access information that they've always had, they just didn't know how to use.
Can you give me an example of that? I would love to hear about kind of that aha moment that you helped a customer see, where they said, we had no idea the gold that was in this data that we could use towards our business and improving our processes. Was there something you could point to in which you could say this was a real success story we hang our hat on?
Yeah, so we've coined a term called chore automation. So we believe that if something is a chore, it should be automated. So there's lots of use cases internal to the customer as well as external for their customers that we've been able to apply chore automation to. So helping a customer with their business processes and understanding how much does a process cost? What are the different touch points that people play in the process? What is the cost of that process? And how can you use technology to more effectively shift left work to automation versus a human being? So a real good example that really affects almost every single one of our SMB customers is financials. And so when you think about modernizing and digitizing the financial analysis, the financial planning, the books that, you'd go through and sort of creating your monthly reporting and your view of the P&L and those types of things. There's a lot of automation that you can bring to bear that we've been able to bring to bear for our customers that allows you to create this true automation task by analyzing the business processes and help them save money on how they manage their financial P&L and resources. In some cases, you have customers that have been able to cut their costs by almost a third, some a little more than that. So that's an internal use case that we've been able to help customers with, and we're digging deeper and wider and being able to provide more automation on the financial side. I'd say with our own customers, it's the ability to use things like Watson and machine learning and automation and AI on things like ticketing. So you have a help desk, customer calls in, and you have a human answer the phone, and you try to figure out what the problem is and try to address the problem with the appropriate solution. Many, many, many times, most help desks around the world, you find them recreating the wheel every time. And in a company like ours, for example, we have 600 employees. If I've seen a specific M365 issue today, I've probably seen it 100 times, but the person that's answering the phone doesn't know that 99 times that's already been addressed by us somewhere else in the company today. And so the ability to use the type of technology we were talking about to tell that person, here are the 99 things that were done to address this problem. And by the way, all of them were the same resolution. You can get to resolutions much faster. You can identify what the problem is much quicker, and you can get the customer's issue resolved much quicker. So those are the types of automations and tools and AI that we want to bring to the data. Like I said, all this information existed. The resolution to these problems that they have existed. They just didn't know how to provide that in a single pane of glass to the person trying to solve the problem for their customer. And so those are the types of things that we're aiming to solve on behalf of our customers. It really depends in many cases on the customer and on the vertical, the types of problems that we can address, but all those can be addressed by really analyzing the business process and normalizing the data and then marrying the appropriate technology, whatever it is, from an AI, ML, or automation perspective to solving that problem.
You did mention Watson, which is from our friends at IBM. You also mentioned Microsoft in there. So I do feel this is an appropriate time to ask, could you speak to the vendors that you feel are really supporting you? And are there any right now, whether it be through solutions that are just great or support through the channel that you feel are doing an excellent job that you would feel comfortable shouting out at the moment?
Yeah, I think Microsoft for sure. I mean, we're 95, if not more, percent a Microsoft shop with our customers. Most of the customer base out there is using some type of Microsoft solution, whether it's 365 or what have you. So Microsoft is definitely one that we shout out to, that we use a lot in helping us identify solutions for our customers. Yes, Watson and other generative AI and solutions that are helping us address those types of things. We also work with Roost and a few other vendors that help us with automation. So there's a plethora of resources out there that you can use. The key thing is not so much what you use on the back end, but how you take what's on the back end, the different vendors and partners that we might connect with, and how you create your own IP by putting those things together and build sort of the automation and the IP that you're going to take to your own customers. So that single pane of glass that you can tie into your portal and give access to customers. In the future, we really see more self-service. We see, instead of calling our help desk, we'll provide access to you with that knowledge that I just talked about from our normalized data, with our access to those 100 incidents that we saw on that 365 issue that I mentioned earlier, to the customer directly, so that a customer that might have that issue can go in and put it into the Integris knowledge base, utilizing Watson, utilizing Microsoft, utilizing all the tools we have in the background that the customer never sees. They'll be able to see their own data and be able to impact a resolution to that problem much quicker, all on their own, without even having to call their own help desk. So you start shortening the cycles of downtime and utilizing those resources more effectively for the customer. So, we white label most things that we do. And in many, many cases, we take a lot of tools from a lot of different areas and we bring them together. And in some cases, we put them together. In some cases, we keep them separate. But to the customer, it's invisible in many ways. And that's the right thing. It's what you really want to. You want to remove friction for the customer. And so simplifying it with not knowing all the things that are going on behind the scenes and having access to different logins, to different tools and systems, if we can normalize that then to a very simplified approach and view, makes it much simpler for the customer as well.
Let's talk more about your customers. You mentioned community banks. Why did that become a sweet spot for Integris? Was there a moment where you realized that, hey, we just have a great formula here, let's lean in? How did that happen?
Yeah, community banks. And I would I would go a layer deeper and say rural community banks are even more interesting for us. I say that because there is a lack of resources available to support a lot of these rural community banks. Yet the regulatory compliance that they have to adhere to is no different than US Bank, Wells Fargo. There's a lot of regulatory compliance in those environments that have to be taken care of by someone that knows what they're doing. That's a premium MSP, and their access to those types of resources, especially in more rural areas or towns south of big cities or north of big cities or east or west of big cities, just aren't available. The access to skill and scale for those is really critical because of their regulatory compliance and their security needs, their cloud needs, and the like. So we love that environment. We know that we can bring a tremendous amount of value to an environment like that, regardless of their size. And we know that we've been able to build the factory of support, both from a CX perspective and a delivery perspective. We've been able to build a Rosetta Stone, so to speak, a language that community bank understands. So our people are very focused on those community banks. I don't mix and match my factory of support by verticals. So if you're working in the vertical of community banks, and that's what you do all day long, you're not going to answer a phone for our legal vertical. You're not going to answer a phone from our horizontal vertical. You're going to be very much focused on speaking the Rosetta Stone of that particular vertical. So they get access to dedicated resources that understand their vertical, that understand the different platforms that they use and their applications, and can speak intelligently and quickly get access to knowledge that can help solve their problems. And we can also very much as I mentioned before, we're not just a break fix shop. In fact, we're not a break fix shop, but we are a consulting organization. So we also spend most of our time with our clients, helping them understand the roadmap that's available. If there are 500 community banks that we support, or 1,000 eventually as we get bigger and bigger and bigger, the ability for us to use all of that knowledge with those 1,000 community banks and tailoring it in a way that you can bring knowledge to one community bank and say, listen, you're part of a community where we see these things every day. I see 100 community banks just like you on a regular basis. Here are things that we're doing over there that we can provide value to. You can't do that without having deep knowledge and a Rosetta Stone that you build for that vertical. So I would say that we're uniquely qualified to support that type of organization. And we love the fact that there's a regulatory compliance component to it that we can provide value in.
I also am curious about how the state of certain trends have impacted your customers and therefore impacted your business. You talk about consulting. I'm sure that the term AI has probably come up in a lot of questions from your customers. When it comes to the trends that we're seeing, especially AI, how has that been a challenge or something that you've had to overcome in really helping your customers to understand the implications of that new technology? Whether it be, and I say again, whether it be AI or something else you can point to, where have you seen that you've had to really redirect or guide your customers lately in the world of just technology coming out?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And we get it a lot. In our organization, we do events across the country. And in those events, we bring together customers and prospects from those different regions. And we talk about a lot of different things. We talk about our responsible IT architecture. We talk about a whole host of things related to the technology space. One of the things that comes up, as you just mentioned, is AI. And because it's a new, to many of our customers, buzzword soup sort of terminology, they're really confused by it. They think they need to be utilizing it, accessing it, and think that it's going to provide a tremendous amount of value to them immediately. Or at the very least, they're not sure if it could or couldn't, and they need consulting and they need someone to advise and guide them. The reality, though, is that where they really need assistance is what I've already talked about, which is let's normalize your processes and your data, and let's make sure that we understand where that sits, how it's being accessed, what applications are connected to them. What are you ultimately trying to present to your customers, and how do we more efficiently do that, utilizing things like automation and AI and machine learning to do that? I would say AI is the third of those three things. I think first is automation, then it's maybe ML, machine learning, and then it's AI. And our customers today are just hearing about AI. All they're hearing about is AI. So they immediately go to the AI thing and say, how do we get this thing involved in our environment today? And the consultative side of what we do is that, well, no, we've got to go back to the data side. Before, you're going to get a lot more value out of understanding your processes, and you're going to get a lot more value in automating chores in your business to help you effectively manage that data in a way that now you can apply AI to it. So a lot of it's education. It's not that different than, like I said before, when cloud came out. People were like, what is the cloud? This big fluffy white thing. It's much different than what they expected it to be. So the training, the education, the starting from square one and kind of setting that end in mind that you want to get to is really the more important question that a lot of these customers don't know that they're asking, but really are asking about. And then it's, okay, whatever AI is available to us to help us achieve that end in mind that you have, now that we have normalized data and now that we have a good understanding of your processes, we've eliminated the chores through automation and ML, then you can start applying AI in really interesting ways to that kind of customer environment. And if we solve it for one customer in a particular vertical, then guess what? I can take that IP and I can utilize it to impact every other customer that we have in that particular vertical in a very similar way, because they're all asking the same question and all need the same education.
I think it's important to also recognize and really appreciate in MSP of your size, the way that you're able to kind of attack all of these challenges that are happening at different regulated industries, at different businesses, at different sizes in different places across the country, really aggregating that understanding of those challenges and then being prepared that much more to tackle the next one for the next thing that comes up and just iterate each time.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that, because that's the benefit of having a platform.
Yeah.
And why I say that we're unique in many ways. There's only a few of us that are servicing the SMB customer base out there. And even the few of us that are out there attack the challenge a little differently. For us, it's how can I access that 600 people's worth of knowledge and information? It's stratifying that workforce more effectively. A lot of smaller MSPs don't have the luxury of being able to do that. They have to utilize the same factory support for every customer that they have. They can't have dedicated groups of resources to support a particular vertical because they just don't have the margins to be able to play with that. And so the ability as we grow, our responsibility, in my opinion, is to more effectively target the problems of particular cohorts of customers. And then with our size and scale, more effectively provide the right resource in those situations. Sometimes it's going to be in a dedicated fashion where you're speaking the same Rosetta Stone all day long. And in other cases, it's shared services where you're supporting those cohorts of employees that are supporting those cohorts of customers in that particular Rosetta Stone that you're able to share across, experts that you share across. So for example, our security team will support the different vertical factories all day long. And they can speak the Rosetta Stone of each. They're the smart ones that can speak almost 3 or 4 different languages. But I don't need to dedicate them to a specific vertical. I can have them be shared services and provide access. I can also do a lot of R&D really close to the customer, utilizing my size and scale, where we're able to tackle problems on behalf of these different verticals. And then pilot new solutions, new services, new technology, see what works, take it back to the lab, retweak it. So our size, our resources, our experience, our value comes from being able to effectively use the size available to us. Now, size doesn't mean everything. It doesn't mean anything if you don't do something with it. And so that's why I say from a platform perspective, we want to keep that intimacy with the customer, but geography isn't the only way to create intimacy. What really is going to create intimacy is solving customer problems quickly, knowing their environment, having access to organized knowledge about customers. And regardless of who's servicing that customer, it's going to feel like they've been servicing them every day from that particular geography all day long, because we've been able to create this technology sphere around our employees and provide them with the best resources to service those customers.
Now, in speaking about your size, I would never want to boil down into a single statement, all the success, all the lessons, all the experiences you've had to get to where you are, all the years that have gone into this. But considering that, when we're thinking about the MSPs and those who are thinking of developing a platform in the future, whether it's a roadmap of years down the line, is there anything that you learned along that way, you as an Integris learned along the way, that you would perhaps do differently or attack in a different way that you would advise those who are looking to scale their business at all, something that they can do to make sure that they do it a little bit smoother going forward in the future?
I would recommend from a MSP perspective, if you're a small MSP out there and you're looking to grow and you're trying to decide whether to become a platform or not, I would say there are a couple of things you need to look at. Number one, you can't be all things to all customers. Now, when you're a small MSP, the risk of saying yes to every different type of client profile is dangerous because you can't be all things to all customers. It makes it very difficult for a help desk, as an example, a small MSP, to support 5 different verticals that are on 5 different technologies, where they don't have a responsible IT architecture where that looks the same, a standard for that MSP that they hold that customer accountable to, because that's, in a relationship with a customer, the expectations go both ways. There's, like I said, good fences build good neighbors. So there's expectations on us to be able to service those customers effectively. But there's also expectations in a good partnership on the customer, where we say, in order for us to service you in the best way, to get to the end in mind you're looking for, these are the things we're going to need you to have in place or to do and to acknowledge from a technology perspective that will allow us to provide the best result for you. And so smaller MSPs tend to not focus so much in those areas. And there isn't as much of a discipline because of their size and because they can't afford to in many cases. If they have the opportunity to bring on a $30,000 a month help desk only deal, a lot of them will say yes to that. We wouldn't, because if I can't understand or own the rest of the environment, then doing the help desk for an environment that I don't know their server farm, their cloud, I'm probably just setting us and the customer up for failure. So I would say one of the most important things for a smaller MSP is really hone in on your ICP, your ideal client profile. Make sure you know who you want to be to what type of customer, and never change. You're going to be, certainly as you grow, you can be opportunistic and you can add more verticals, but do it in that same fashion. And you'll build a business that's very valuable, and you'll build one that's that can become more scalable. So I would say that's probably the most important thing that most MSPs need to do when they're thinking about joining or becoming a platform. And then in becoming a platform, you have to there's risk you have to take on, right? There's monies that you have to invest in the business. So in many cases, smaller MSPs have 2 questions to answer. Do they try to go down that path of building it themselves, or do they look for a destination platform that's already done that? And one that ties very closely to their culture, because in our business, people are the most important component. We don't sell things, we don't sell widgets, we sell time, we sell skill, we sell consulting. And so taking care of your people is really, really important. And that's not always what you find out there in a lot of smaller MSPs. And so finding someone that lines up to your values and lines up to your culture and will take care of your customers in a really meaningful way, you can become a platform by joining a platform and being a smaller fish in a bigger pond, but certainly one that can bring a lot more value to your customers and to your employees.
So one thing that I would love for you to define for me is, these days, I do notice a lot of people across the industry struggle to define platform or want to define it in their own way. Is there anything you would point to in saying, like, this is what defines us as a platform and why that is what differentiates us from other people that may be struggling to kind of cobble that together?
Yeah, so I would say size in the sense of geography, in terms of how much of an area you can cover, is certainly one of the components of building a platform. If you're in a local market, you're probably not going to build a platform MSP for that market. But I would say geography is one component of it. I would say the depth and breadth of your services is going to be another thing that's going to help define what type of platform you are, because that costs a fair amount of money to be able to build those factories behind you that support the customers that you're looking for. So the reality is, platform comes from certainly size and scale, and being able to bring, those resources to bear for your customer. There isn't really a line in the sand that says, at $100 million, you're a platform, or at $50 million, you're a platform, or at $200 million, you're a platform. It gets to the point where you have to stratify your work more effectively, where you're investing in a lot of these things that we were talking about, whether it's trying to solve AI or machine learning, or whether you're wanting to bring in other resources and verticals. You're going to do M&As on your own. If you're going to do your own M&A, I think you're becoming a platform. For us, north of $50 million is you're well on your way to becoming a platform, and we see that out in the industry. And And you have to make a decision at that point. Do you join a bigger one or do you try to build it up through investment? You probably have to take on a partner as well, because in order to become a platform, M&A is going to be really critical, and it's also fairly expensive. And so that's where private equity oftentimes comes into play. There isn't a platform out there that isn't private equity backed. We have a great partner in OMERS, which is a Canadian pension fund that we're extremely excited to be a part of. And so having the right partner behind you that helps you grow the business, both organically and inorganically, is going to be really critical. And so again, you as an MSP that's growing, you have to make the decision. Do you want to keep going down the path of owning yourself or running yourself and building it? That's very expensive and hard to do and unlikely to be successful. Or do you join a platform that exists or take on a partner?
Speaking of partners, is there anything that you would advise looking for in a partner with private equity? I think that can be a really scary couple of words right there for people that are just diving into it. What would you recommend as far as how you as a business can maintain a level of control and to be able to say, these are the people we want to partner with because of XYZ?
Yeah, it's not unlike any other relationship. If you're of size and a platform that's interesting to the private equity world, you're going to have lots of suitors. And just like any other relationship that you're building, whether it's your spouse or a friend or what have you, there's more art than science, right? What's on paper doesn't necessarily reflect the reality of a strong relationship. And so you have to date, so to speak, before you sign up with a particular private equity firm. And you have to interview them as much as they're interviewing you on what's important to you. For us, it's always been about taking care of our people. We want our people to participate in the success of the business. We want to invest in our people. So as we make more money, we want to invest a lot of that money back into the business. This year, we're implementing a new Integris University. We're introducing new rewards and awards programs for our employees. We're looking for ways to help them grow within our business, whether it's in a particular part of the business like security or cloud or whatever it might be, or a particular vertical, or whether it's professional development. Those are things that you want a private equity firm to value as much as you do. So that's a really critical one. Private equity oftentimes gets a bad rap, right? It's the vampire squid terminology that a lot of times gets attached to them. But the reality is there are really good ones out there that want to see you be successful in the way that you want to be successful. You have to remember, they don't know how to run an MSP. You do. And the right ones are going to be strong partners behind you, supporting and helping you and providing resources where they can to help you grow. You're only going to find that through spending a bunch of time with the ones that are out there and making the decision for yourself. You'll feel the click, just like you do in building a friendship or a relationship. You'll feel the click. You'll feel the DNA kind of match. You'll feel we're one of us type people, just like we did with OMERS, which is a wonderful partner for us. And we're so excited to be working with them. And I think that's the only way to really do it. There's obviously fund size and there's numbers that you're going to look at to determine if it's a private equity firm that has a fund that can support your ambition. But a lot of them will be able to achieve that really easily and quickly. It's just a matter of finding the right fit. The MSP environment is very attractive to private equity right now. If you're an attractive size organization that's looking to take on a partner, you will have more than just one group to talk to. And that's where you've got to dig deep and do your own due diligence. Talk to other portcos that they have. Find out how they've done business with ones that have exited that are still on their portfolio. There's so many different ways you can do your due diligence. And they're really, really important to do. Because at the end of the day, I take responsibility. I don't have 600 employees. I have 600 families that I'm responsible for. And it's important to me that they have a home, that they can grow within this home, that we can help them, even if they don't stay with Integris long-term and go off to do other things. I hope we've set them up for great success moving forward.
What's next for Integris in 2025? What plans can you speak to?
So I would say the first evolution of Integris was doing those 9 acquisitions, building scale. And then the second phase, Integris 2.0, so to speak, was all about maximizing and standardizing the Integris way moving forward, right? When you have 9 different companies coming together, what you want to be able to exit from that is a one way of one Integris moving forward. And so we built the scale, and then we spent some time, and still are in many ways, refining kind of what that Integris way moving forward is going to be and continue to be. And then the third leg is going to be a combination of growing the traditional MSP business, but also recognizing that a lot of the MSP world that we're used to is very infrastructure focused, and in many cases becoming more and more commoditized, right? When you think about the typical MSP historically is sold remediation, help desk, cloud, security, probably more defensive security than anything else, if we're being honest. And they provide consulting for their small business customer. In the future, I think you're going to have to continue to do that. That becomes more like dial tone. You now need to focus more on the things we've been talking a lot about, the data, the digital state of the customer. How do they access that data? What applications do they access that data with? Should we partner with specific application companies out there to help bring more resources to these companies through the use of applications and software? There's going to be the better security of that data, where that data sits from a cloud perspective. And then it's access to data. It's now reporting on data. Think business intelligence and think, now that you have this data lake of resources, how do you manage that data more effectively and present it to customers? And then you get into the things we've already spent a lot of time talking about, which is how do you then automate and make that more efficient? And how do you provide knowledge on that data and access to that data to the customer and machine learning and then AI to it so you become more efficient with how you utilize that data to the benefit of your own customer. I think that's the world we're delving deeper into right now. So we're going to continue to grow organically. We're very much focused on 10 to 15% net organic growth through a lot of different programs that we have in the business. We're going to deepen and widen our skill base and our factories of support for the various verticals. We're opportunistic about some other verticals. We really like the healthcare space, and we're thinking about that. We're digging deeper and wider into CMMC, regulated manufacturing. We love the regulated space out there for SMB customers, and so we're going to be digging deeper and wider into those areas. We'll do a lot of acquisitions, ideally in some of those verticals. And then we'll do probably some strategic acquisitions as well, where we acquire maybe more data skill set, where we acquire machine learning organization or something that will help us build more automation. So there's going to be a lot of growth for us in the future that's now tied to a standard that we have. And our standard involves, as I said, utilizing those 600 people in a more meaningful way to every one of the 1,800 managed services customers that we have in the language of the vertical that they speak. So a lot of complexity, but a lot of fun. We're also very excited to continue to help our employees grow, give them more opportunities. As we become a bigger business, there's way more opportunities for people to specialize in certain things. In a smaller MSP, you have to wear a lot of different hats. And, in the morning, because you're available, you might wake up and have to go install a desktop. In the afternoon, you might get to work on a virtualization project. But every day is not really dependent on what your skill is. It's going to be more often dependent on your availability. In our world, we're really focusing people on those specific Rosetta Stones we want them to learn. So if you want to be doing security and you're good at it, then we're going to have you do security all day long. I don't want you installing desktops or laptops or things that are taking away from the thing that you're really good at and you really want to do. So we take the hats off the employees. We leave one on and then give them opportunity to grow into other technologies as well if they so desire. So that's really going to be our focus as we build Integris 3.0 and we grow into even a larger platform in this space for our small business customer. But that's the key thing is we're not going to lose sight of who our customer is. Mm-hmm. We've never lost sight that we're looking for the premium upper end of the SMB, lower end of the mid-market customer that really wants us to own the strategy, that allows us to come in and drive the strategy for that business. And they can bring all of these different tools that we have access to the benefit of that particular customer.
Well, for those SMB potential customers and regulated industries who are listening out there, where can they go to learn more about Integris?
Well, you certainly can go to integrisit.com. We've got a lot of different resources there in a vertical setting as well. So you can sort of look up what's most interesting for you and where you come from. We've got a lot of information on our socials. We're constantly spending time talking about the different verticals and going deeper and wider. We do case studies. You look for events from us. We're certainly going to be out there where you can come spend some time with us and learn a little bit more about all of these different things that we've been talking about. And we'd love to chat with you. So, certainly go to integrisit.com and there's ways for you to connect with us there. And we'd love to chat with you more.
Glenn, thank you so much for your time today. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you.
It's been great chatting with you as well. Thank you for having me. It's been a wonderful experience.
Thank you so much to Glenn for joining me today, and thanks to you for watching or listening. You can check out every episode of Channel Insider Partner POV on channelinsider.com or watch us on YouTube at youtube.com/channelinsider_news and trends. You can also listen to us as a podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow wherever possible so you never miss an episode. Come connect with us on LinkedIn or X at Channel Insider, or with me at Katie Bavoso. Once again, I'm Katie Bavoso, and I'll see you next time.